What up guys, this is Steve from Outside Studios, and in this video I'm going to be talking about how mainstream media, things like music, movies, politics, the news, advertising, they're all negatively affecting your subjective experience of life. And this video isn't to tell you how to think, but it's more to just get you aware of the many ways in which you're being influenced. Because before you're able to change anything, you first have to be aware of it. And that's the point of this video. This is a real red pill versus blue pill moment right now for those who are really wanting to understand what's really happening behind the scenes. When we are born, we are hit with enormous amounts of sensory information. We're hit with light, but we don't really know what light is. We hear sounds, but we don't really know what they are either. It's in this way we make patterns out of the sensory input that we're getting to navigate our environment. The thing is, most of our experience is subjective. Things that we think are true turn out to not be true. So it's really hard to discern reality for what it really is. Although we may be certain of some things, the truth is nobody is certain of everything. And so we naturally gravitate towards those with certainty to ease this sort of tension that we have of not knowing who we really are or what's really happening. People look to certainty in ideology, governments, relationships, religion, anything to ease this tension within ourselves of not knowing who we are and how the world works. But the problem is, people who look to outside structures for that certainty will always inevitably be left with more uncertainty and insecurity because those structures are inherently unstable. So that leads me to the first point of this video, which is defer to yourself and your own understanding of the world. Follow your own path and create your own goals. Don't look to external things and ideologies to tell you who you are. This is called being at the cause and not the effect. This is because marketers, politicians, and everyday opportunistic men and women will line up to take advantage of your uncertainty and indecisiveness. Do not let alarmists create a state of fear inside of you. Even if the world were to get hit by an asteroid tomorrow, your soul still lives on. Mainstream media has this tendency where it creates a lot of clickbait, creates a lot of rage bait in order to maximize the most amount of clicks. And the way the society works is that most people are at the bottom. If most people are at a low vibration, they have to meet people where they're at and talk to them in that way. No different than how if I'm talking to a classroom of first graders, I can't be using big language. I have to be talking in a way that the first graders can understand. You can't really spread this positive message to people at a low vibration because it won't resonate with them. What resonates with them is things that are related in their paradigm. When you're angry, all you want to do is make others angry. Negative people always think that they're being so objective and real. Like they're fucking lying, bro. They're not. Because the reason why is this thing called the Pygmalion effect, otherwise known as the self-fulfilling prophecy. What it states is that it's not what you see that you believe, it's what you believe that you see. What you believe determines what you are able to see. People who are negative all the time, they don't resonate with positivity because they live in a world where anytime they're being positive, they have to be fake. And so they project that into the world. Anytime they see anything positive, it must be fake. That's their paradigm. For example, let's say you're a person who is in a state of apathy. When you read the newspaper, you'll just find things that confirm that reality. If you are someone who your natural state is anger, you'll read the newspaper and you'll find reasons to complain and be angry about. If you're someone who's naturally more enthusiastic, in a higher paradigm, then you'll read the same newspaper and find opportunities. 3 different people reading the same newspaper can get 3 different results or 3 different ways of seeing the same thing. Although this is not, current newspapers, it's kind of biased towards negativity and sensationalism, so that's not really fair. A lot of what you see on the news, like I said, is targeted towards the masses, the bottom percentage of people, because that is what builds up most of the audience. And it's not necessarily the media's fault that this happens either, because you gotta think of it from their perspective. If you're a journalist and you're putting out good stories, life-affirming stories, and nobody is interested in it, nobody wants to click on it, then what does that teach you? It tells you that you have to put out more filth in the world. You have to put out negativity because that's what gets the clicks. I have a friend, and he had a friend who works in a news organization. He had this story on Christmas. It was on Christmas time that he wanted to put out. It was like this wholesome story. I can't really remember the details of it, but it was just like a really wholesome, feel-good story. And he showed it to his superior, asking if he could put it out. And basically he was told, no, like put out this, we want to hear a story on how Christmas is racist. Put out a story on how Christmas is racist. He didn't understand why, and not long after that he quit. What you're seeing on the news isn't objectively what's happening in the world. It's what people would most want to see. If you're a struggling reporter, would you appeal to someone's higher self, like appeal to someone's true nature, or would you just do what works and keep perpetuating this lower state of consciousness? What you see on a lot of mainstream media is also this narrative of us versus them, the good guys versus the bad guys. Is that necessarily how the world works? And don't get me wrong, there's a lot of examples, like there's a reality where this is true. For example, in sports, there's a team that wins and there's a team that loses. In a lot of action movies, there's a good guy versus bad guy, and I love watching things like that. In fact, I just recently watched Django Unchained, and that was a really good movie too, and that's a movie where it's a good guy versus a bad guy. And I also love watching basketball, but nonetheless, there's a reality where that exists. But that isn't to say that there's still these ideas that's constantly being reinforced in us, causing this us versus them mentality. And what does this do to us? For one, mainstream media is just loves talking about threats, activating our amygdala, getting us stressed, getting us thinking that there's danger when there really isn't. Problem with the us versus them mentality, it's too egocentric, it's too much about me. Us versus them is a win-lose paradigm, and what you want to get into is that collaborative frame, that win-win paradigm. Before we get back into the next part, I just want to say, if you guys are interested in buying beanbags and you live in the Mississauga area, the Toronto, Peel region, text the number below, 9 different colors, pre-filled. It's kind of neat. So back to what I was saying though about these win-lose paradigms, how just toxic they are, because when you're in a competitive frame, when you think that you are against this enemy, when you make up this enemy in your head that you're going against, you create a lot of these problems, right? And so that's one big reason on why I had to limit a lot of the news I consumed, and why I stopped, why I unfollowed a bunch of pages on my social media. But the things that you see on social media, you might think that you're above that type of shit, but because you're continually watching it, it's like almost like water, how it's just over time water can like go through rock. I had to unfollow a bunch of pages that kind of reinforcing these ideas of us versus them, or just putting you in a lower vibration. Things like 6buzz TV I unfollowed. If you guys don't know what that is, it's like a really popular news page in my city. This isn't just shit on certain pages, but overall you have to audit the type of things that you are interacting with daily, the things that you are constantly watching. This us versus them mentality, in this frame you're creating your own problems. You're pushing people away because of this thing called the Pygmalion effect, like I mentioned. You're creating this world where you're going against this imaginary enemy. Doesn't matter who it is. It could be a group of people. It could be this imaginary corrupt force. And this isn't to say that there's no evil in the world. Of course, you can find examples of evil in the world. I'm not saying to just ignore that and think positive thoughts all the time. That's just going the other direction. But you have to be aware that that which you place your attention on eventually grows, and you just see more of it in your worldview. One of the biggest things that I learned this year was just how much society is under this mass hypnosis. Just society as a whole. And I don't really want to get into how this came to be. There's a lot of conspiracy theories on why this is. I don't really want to get into that. But just know that there is a lot of forces that are being affected onto you. There's something within us that wants to just watch shitty TV and get angry. There's something within us that just wants to stay comfortable and not grow. There's something within us that likes to self-sabotage. And you gotta recognize the parts of you that does this, because mass media is strengthening all the parts within you that is collectively making you weaker. Those negative parts of yourselves. I recognized that I was not stronger than, these corporations that spend millions on making their app addictive and spend millions on clickbait and spend millions on getting you to interact more with their products. I'm not at the point where I can just see things and not have it affect me as much. I'm on my journey in getting there, but I recognize where I'm at right now. And unless you're someone who's been, seriously working on being grounded within yourself and not having these affect you, all that within mass media is just dragging you down. There are many conspiracy theories on why things are the way they are. Why society seems to be made this way, in which those who want to ascend find it very difficult to, and why it keeps people at this lower vibration. Most of the time, becoming your best self and being successful isn't about doing more and learning more. It's about just letting go and releasing those bad habits, because you're kind of like this balloon that's being tied down by all these weights. If you just let go of the weights, you'll naturally just ascend up. If you just take the step towards reducing the things that are keeping you in a lower vibration, and this could involve changing your environment, changing the things that you have control over, reducing your social media usage, reducing time you spend watching the news and time interacting with mass media and mass consciousness. Things like that will do a lot more for you if you're on the ascension path. If you want to just, the Matrix is using us to accomplish goals in this system, to get us to do what they want. At a very simple level, we can see this happen in consumer culture, where we're put in this continual rat race, trying to keep up with the Joneses, working our job that we don't really want to work, just to blow up our money on things that we don't really want, to keep up with the appearance of being successful or looking better than the next guy. You might be like, why am I doing this? Like, why do I care about these things that inherently don't really add value to me? On your deathbed, you're not gonna give a fuck about that shit. So why do we spend so much of our life going after these things? The Matrix, or mass consciousness, is putting us into this lifestyle where we're ultimately not living the life that we want to live. We're just a cog in the system to accomplish these goals in the Matrix. There are upsides to this and there are downsides to this. This societal cohesion, if everyone just plays their role and doesn't question anything and plays their part in society, yet our individual, happiness, you could say, or our individual ability to have amazing freedom and abundance in our life is kind of halted because of mass media. And the other thing is, we're more attuned to threats than we are to opportunity. And that's why I personally had to stop watching the news, or limiting the amount of news that I got. I still hear about what's going on in the world. You're not completely, you will hear about things that happen. It's just that you don't have to get all this other fluff and shit that's hitting you. The news organizations have this sort of fake authority, because a lot of us, including me, we're deluded into thinking that if we focus on the threats, that will somehow keep us safe, when in reality we're just poisoning our mind. And because we are more attuned to threats, what news organizations do is that they sensationalize and dramatize any negative event. They make it like the next big catastrophe, basically, to just get our attention, to just get us to click the news article, just to read a little bit. They might just completely ignore the good news or the regular things that are actually happening in the world, and instead they choose to focus on the 1 or 2% that is super negative, because ultimately that's the things that people will click on. That's the things that will go viral. Those are the things that people will share with other people. Many think that being fearful will protect them from danger, so they hold on to fear in the mistaken belief that it will somehow decrease the risk of bad things from happening. But in fact, the exact opposite is true. Fear will actually distort perception and is more likely to attract dangers than actually repel it. There's this one study that found that people and animals can sense fear, and they are more likely to lash out at someone who is fearful. It's like a natural response. Let's just say you're this black belt and someone wants to pick a fight with you. If you just talk to them, they can kind of almost sense that, oh, this guy's not afraid, there's something up, I shouldn't beat this guy's ass. But if you didn't know how to fight and you went up and tried to diffuse an argument, for example, it's almost like people could sense that you're a pussy in a way, or that you're kind of afraid, and they're more likely to fucking lash out at you and fight you because they know that you can't fight. If you hold on to fear, you're actually attracting more danger into your life. And also, fear and stress weaken your immune system. So why hold on to that shit? Same thing with anger. Most people think that anger is the correct response to injustice. Someone wronged you or betrayed you, and your first reaction is anger, and that's normal. It's normal to get angry. But the mistaken belief is that your anger will somehow intimidate or hurt that person for proper revenge. I hate that word, revenge. It's such a nasty word. But the reality is that anger actually hurts you more than it hurts the other person. Anger gets you out of control. It constricts your body and your mind. And it gets you only being able to think about that person or that injustice. It doesn't put you in your power. True power is being able to let go of it, non-reactiveness, being able to just take that injustice and not just allowing it to happen, but being calm and centered and not be affected by it. The best revenge against someone is not that feeling of anger, it's the release of that emotion. It's to release attention from that person or that injustice. That's not to say, oh, I'm just gonna allow this thing to happen to you. You can still have boundaries. And this isn't to say that bad things don't happen. Of course there's bad things that happen in the world. Of course, you know, people will go through horrible things. There might be a major catastrophe that happens to you. But why does the media have to loop on these absurd narratives and problems that just keep us in this dense, contracted state? Just keep us in this lower vibration. Why does it do this? Why? One reaction you can have of this is just be like, fuck mainstream media. I'm gonna fuck shit up. I'm gonna go to CIBC or no, CBS or some shit, or like the news organization, and just fucking tear shit up and fucking shoot everyone. Or you can take control of your own state and just be like, you know what? I'm just gonna release attention from that thing. I'm just gonna go the other direction. Hey, it's cool that people can watch the news. It's cool that people make the news. I understand that. But I'm just decide not to interact with it. In the book, Levels of Energy by Frederick Dodson and Power versus Force by Richard Hawkins, both very incredible books. I highly recommend to anyone. They use this energetic scale to represent different energy levels. For this scale, they used emotions to kind of represent the levels of energy. And they are these low to mid-level emotions that most of the world's population is at. And you could also see that although there's an emotion like anger, which is below the optimal level of 200, 200 being the level of power starting to emerge, and anything below 200 is the level of force. Even though it's below that level, it's still higher up than emotions such as fear or shame or apathy. So if you're someone who is depressed, who has depression, and your natural set point is grief or just apathy, if you get angry, that's actually a good thing. You're actually rising in energy, because before you can get to all those high states of emotion, you have to go up the scale. So in that way, mainstream media is in some ways good at drawing people up from the very low levels of shame and apathy into states like anger and jealousy and pride. But even though anger is a level above fear and apathy, it doesn't mean that you should stay there. Go up, evolve past it. The world is actually getting better. Like the level of energy is actually rising on this planet. There's a much higher overall level of wealth. You know, there's less people dying from sickness. There's less illness rates. You know, in many ways, the world is getting better. There's higher literacy rates. But, you know, if you focus on the news and mainstream media, you might not get that perception of the world. I don't want this video to be just me shitting on mainstream media, because in many ways, it's doing a lot of good lifting these people up from these lower level states of apathy and shame and whatever. I'm just trying to make the point that what you see on news, though, is not necessarily reflecting what's actually happening in this world. It's just reflecting what most people are most interested in seeing and talking about. So if you're trying to ascend and trying to evolve your consciousness, it might be for the best to put your attention elsewhere for now. Mainstream media and the news is seeped with low vibration energy. With only very few exceptions, negative emotions do not protect or serve you at all. They sap life energy from you and lead to exhaustion, bad health, and undesirable life conditions. The best option is therefore almost always to just release and to let go. Instead of being conditioned by society, learn to condition yourself and curate your own consciousness, and don't let it be dictated by mainstream media. Focus on the qualities that you wish to be instead of the things that you wish to have or do. You eventually become what you put your attention to, and you can only attract that which vibrates at the same energetic frequency. If the universe was created with love for good intention, then everything that happens within it is based off that good intention, based off love. We live in a friendly universe. Don't expect the world to provide for you. Provide whatever you seek in the world to yourself. Give it to yourself. If you seek love and validation, give it to yourself. And then once you've given it to yourself, you can then share it with the rest of the world if you like. And so those were some of my insights on the things that I've learned about mainstream media and social conditioning and the matrix. Do with that information however you like. Hopefully you use it for good to better yourself. But you know, that's all I got for this video. So thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video, man. Peace out.